Watching the sunset from the beautiful First Ridge tasting room in Mudgee, Australia, Paul, the First Ridge viticulturalist, gives us an overview of the vineyard and its history.
So just tell me a little about First Ridge.
Well, First Ridge, as a vineyard, started in the mid-90s. And it's a beautiful site, this vineyard, because of its altitude. It's probably one of the highest vineyards in Mudgee. We're sitting at around 570 metres here, and the highest vineyard block is over the back here at about 600. As you can imagine, being a vineyard on a giant hill, all the topsoil of this hill has been eroded down into the valleys down here over time, so we're on really rocky country here, and it's all volcanic. Everything.
Okay.
Mudgee is an old volcano, and so you've got every type of soil and every type of rock you can imagine. But the reason it's such a great site for vineyard on this block is because of that. What I like to say is it's the poverty of the soil is our strength. Because of that, you've got vines out here in the background that are 22 years old, and the trunks are still, not even 2 inches in diameter, whereas if they were grown, down in those flats there, the trunks would be 6-8 inches, and the canopies would be bigger, and bunches are bigger, and the berries are bigger, so you get far more diluted flavours and higher risk of diseases, and because you get less sunlight, less airflow, and so on. So we always have an air movement up here, and it's much smaller berries and much smaller bunches. So that's sort of the idea behind site selection, is that you've got this wonderful exposure. We planted Italian varieties, where we specialise in Italian varieties here, and that started about because of 2 Italian varieties that we tried from Mudgee that were planted back in the early 60s at Montrose, which was a winery built over on the north side of Mudgee, near David's property. And they employed an Italian winemaker, Carlo Carino, who was a wine consultant, and he brought from Italy Sangiovese, Barbera and Nebbiolo and planted them here. And we tried these years ago in McLaren Vale, and I remember at the time just going, these are wines that are so drinkable, and they were wines for the first time that I remember physically going, I'd like to finish that bottle. Because we grew up, of course, in Australia with big Shirazes, big Cabernets, big wooded Chardonnays, and these wines were so different. They were fruit driven, they were beautiful, had length, but they weren't big, gutsy, tannic wines and over oaked and that sort of thing. And it's all family owned now, so we're classified as boutique. The largest vineyard ownership here would now be the Oatley family that have Oatley wines. But the rest of us are, just small, the 100 tonne, 120 tonne sort of areas. Some would be more, some would be less. We only built this cellar door 4 years ago. We were growers for 20 odd years. We still sell fruit to wineries around Australia. We've got Shiraz and other varieties that we sell, Tempranillo and some others. But we keep about 60 tonne for ourselves, and that started in 2013 when we made our first wine, and we built this 4 years ago, the cellar door, and it's always been earmarked as site for that, and so it came to pass, and I can tell you it's sort of just grown like that since we've opened. It's been remarkable, the interest. What I found fascinating when I first started to sell wine to the public, everybody would say, what is Vermentino, what is Fiano, what is Barbera? Tell us about, where now people say, I would like Barbera, I would like to have Vermentino. So obviously it's, people are aware of these varieties now, which is wonderful.
That's fantastic.
Yeah. We talk a lot about these days about global warming and heating and so on, and there's no doubt there's changes in the climate, and we're seeing hotter. Last 4 seasons here in Mudgee have been hot. Mm-hmm. But those temperatures, those minimum temperatures are still lower. But the big difference this vintage was that the minimum temperatures were higher. And that's the first time I've seen that in here. But it didn't have any effect on our acids. We didn't have to add anything to our fruit. It's one of the really lovely things about this site is we've never had to add sugar, we've never had to add acid. It's just fermented, it's filtered, put into wood or whatever, and bottled. And so they're very pure wines, and which is it's a lovely base to go from. There's no manipulation or having to add tannins and all this stuff, which often you'll find in hotter climates where they have to play around with wines a lot to get them to where they want them to be. Look, we're lucky here. We have the river, Cudgegong River runs past the property, this place needs irrigation, as I was saying. It's very rocky, and if these vines didn't have water, they wouldn't last very long without it. Probably 2 years before they would chuck it in.
Right.
Having said that, they're very economical on water vines. Sandy soils use a lot of water, obviously, because it leaches through very quickly.
Right.
Country where you've got a clay subsoil, you don't need to water as much. Here we have a lot of rock, and it's a siltstone rock. And again, it soaks into that, but it sits and it just slowly. So the vines have got good roots, which go down quite a way. But our average is around about a megalitre a hectare a year. So it's not high for our. When you consider that cotton's up, 20 megalitres plus, and so on. But water's key to anything, of course, in any agricultural pursuit. You can't grow without water.
No.
But it's a big worry. Water it's been the driest. We're in the grip of a pretty serious drought right now, and there's no doubt that we're a bit worried about where it's all going. It's all right to have a river. There's no water running down it. You can't draw from it.
Yeah.
And so, and of course, they're cutting back our entitlements to try and preserve water. So we have to be very careful of how we manage the vineyards at the moment.